Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Alicia here, and Dusty, y'all see him not as much as you see me. But today we just wanted to do a little garden tour. I know I've had little clips of us harvesting this and that all over our yard, and we have different things planted in different areas, so I thought that it'd be nice to do a garden tour and let y'all see where everything is. Over here, this portion of our garden is in closer proximity to our house. It's not very far from our door. And this is where we've planted peas and tomatoes and squash. We also have a few zucchini plants. Now our squash, our favorite variety of squash is the yellow crookneck, but we also have some zucchini plants. We had some that did not make it and we replanted. A lot of what we've planted throughout the yard is succession planted, so we'll have things to be ready periodically throughout the growing season. Over on this side we have Blue Lake snap beans. They are running beans, so we have them trellised. In this area of our yard, this is more of like a food orchard, and we have perennial things. We have raspberries, peaches, apples. There's some more blueberries over here, and there's a fig at the very end. We haven't had a lot of luck with our figs.
I also planted peas in here just to kind of give it some cover to keep the grass from growing up in the bed. It'll probably be a while before the apples come in, maybe 2 or 3 years. We do have a few peaches on this tree, but they've got some kind of fungus and they're not doing real good.
Okay, and as we come on around this side of the yard, we have cucumber that is trellised over here, and we also have a grape. This is our second or third year trying to grow grapes. We have not had very much success with that. The plant has made grapes, but they never seem to mature. They're still really hard, and they haven't gotten any bigger than that in the last couple of weeks. We have one cucumber so far on this plant. It is in a pot, so we're having to water it a good bit because it dries out faster than the ones that are just in the ground.
And it did get a little too dry the other day. It got real hot, but it's bouncing back pretty good.
All right, and as we've come back around, we're back to the first area that we talked about where the squash and the tomatoes are, and these are actually peas as well. We planted these probably 2 weeks after we planted the first set of peas. So as I said, we have tomatoes and peas planted together here. This is where we used our weed fabric, and it seems to be working really well. The peas add nitrogen to the soil, which is something that tomatoes need, so they've really helped each other. We like to plant those two things together. There are a couple of pepper plants. There's a bell pepper right here that has been almost completely engulfed by the pea plants, but it's doing great. We've already gotten 2 bell peppers off of it. And over here next to it, a couple down, there is a jalapeno plant that we've also harvested from already. They're doing fine. They are covered in peas, but they're doing fine. And speaking of the peas, we'll probably be picking very early next week, possibly tomorrow. And then just over to the left of that garden, we have a few more tomato plants in buckets. And then we have more peas, eggplants, some more tomatoes. Those are newer. Like I said, we succession planted just about everything. Some of it on purpose, some of it not. But we also have more squash over here. And then on the back section of this, where the trellis is, we have more beans and more cucumbers. Okay.
Okay, and on the back side of this garden, we have okra. And we got a little late start, so it's not real high right now. But when it gets hot, it'll get on up there. And so we're gonna walk up the hill. All right, and I've got some culverts that I cut up and made little round beds. If you've been following us, you would have seen when we did this. But I've got snap beans planted in here, and there's 3 of them that have squash planted in them. And of course we have built a trellis, just kind of a rough trellis, something for the beans to climb on. You know, it ain't got to be pretty. It ain't got to be, you know, something to win a prize or nothing. Because once them green beans start climbing on it, it's gonna look beautiful. Get a close-up shot with this squash in there. And it should climb up. I've never done a climbing squash, so we're gonna see how that goes. It's supposed to work better. And this is a random kale plant that decided to come up, so we've been enjoying that.
And then this raised bed that is directly behind our house, this is where we had our carrots. And earlier in the week, we harvested all of those that were left because it's gotten so hot, couldn't leave them in there anymore. There are a few that broke off, and I never did come back out here and get them.
Yeah, they were kind of small anyway. This bed, as you can see, has gravel, and over the years the gravel has kind of come up more because our compost and stuff that we put on the top has deteriorated. So you see the gravel more, and it's not good for carrots and potatoes and stuff like that. And
our failed crop of cabbage, the bugs just really did a number on it, and it never did. None of them really made a head before the bugs started getting to them. And now it's really too hot. So we'll be pulling these up probably this week, and I don't know what else we're gonna stick in this bed before the summer's over.
may just cover it up and make this a winter crop, or excuse me, fall crop bed. We also planted some corn.
Some corn coming up in the back of that.
Yeah, I planted it down this whole side, but this right here didn't want to come up for some reason. But it's just it's a peaches and cream is the name of the variety. It's really delicious, but I really wasn't planning on growing a lot of corn this year. I had thought about planting a bunch of corn for the chickens, but we just really don't have the space for it. So I just thought we'd, grow a few, cobs for grilling and just to enjoy for a couple of meals. And that's it. We're gonna pull this up and feed to the chickens probably tomorrow.
Okay, and directly up the hill, which is still right behind our house, we have these raised beds that we put in probably 6 years ago. They have been here a long time. And of course they're metal. And if you have been watching us a long time, we've talked about these beds. There are large limbs and stumps and things like that in the very bottom of it, just as a filler. And then there's our compost and stuff like that that we replace on the top of them every year. And some things are doing great in here, some things are not. The cayenne pepper seems to be loving this bed. And right next to it is a jalapeno that I've already gotten a couple jalapenos off of. What was that?
The cabbage, not
Yeah.
so much. We haven't done good with cabbage at all this year.
Ever.
Yeah. And of course, comfrey.
The next couple of beds have been kind of perennial beds, and they're a little bit overgrown right now. There's some grass and weeds in it, but mostly these two beds have asparagus. And there are a few herbs inside these two beds. There's also some rhubarb, but it's mostly for our asparagus. And we've been growing asparagus for 3 or 4 years now. So some of these are very established, and we've harvested a good bit of asparagus off of these.
That's rhubarb. And I actually just threw this squash in here. I don't even remember what kind it is. I think I had one seed left in a pack. And so I just stuck it in here because this part of the bed, it has some fennel, but it's mostly empty. And we keep getting this, I guess it's a watercress or some kind of cress that grows in our raised beds. Haven't really tried that hard to get rid of it.
Good cover crop.
Yeah.
I also had a lot of zinnias in here, and I only have a few that have popped back up this year, but last year it was just pretty much solid zinnias and just a little bit of asparagus.
Yeah, I really expected the zinnias to come back in full force, but...
Well, they had been, that was 3 years ago that I planted all those zinnias, so they've done pretty good. The stick mate.
Not really part of the garden, but here's one of our chicken coops.
It all works together.
This is where I make a lot of compost. I just raked up a bunch of grass and weeds that I weed eated, you know, around the yard, and I let it dry, and then I rake it up, and I just throw it in here, and the chickens scratch around in it, and I just keep adding. I try to add before it starts to smell, and that way it stays kind of fluffy, if that makes any sense. It doesn't pack down too much. You gonna play the drums for us? And then of course our plum trees. Now we have 3 plum trees that are actually mature enough to produce plums. Now we haven't had a good harvest on these plums. You know, we've got several that were like really good. For the most part, the worms are our biggest concern. We don't use any poisons. Everything is organic. We don't even use organic pesticides. So I haven't quite figured that out yet, but they're just actually maturing enough. So I think in the next few years we'll probably see better results. I believe I'm just figuring out the right way to prune them. So we're improving. We actually got some this year, so that's better than before.
Okay, and over here, right across from the plum trees, this is where we've planted our pumpkins. This is the second or third year that we've planted pumpkins over here. And we've had chickens run through here. So the soil is some of our best soil. And
we take the chickens off for several months so that it don't burn the plants up.
And we saved seeds from the pumpkins that we grew last year, so we only have 2 varieties this year. I actually don't have a large pumpkin. The only 2 varieties of pumpkins that we'll have this year are Fairy Tale and a small variety of regular orange pumpkin. I can't even remember the name of it. We actually planted some more squash and some more peas in this little area right here next to the pumpkins. Okay, and also next to our shop and directly behind the plum trees is kind of the star of the show in this season that we're in right now, because the blueberries are just going crazy. And this may be the end of our garden tour because I'm really needing to pick blueberries. The little blueberry bandit, if you don't watch him, he comes over here, you'll go missing him, and this is where he is, over here picking blueberries straight off the tree. The first year that we moved into this house, this blueberry bush was not very big at all. This one was already established, the one over to the left here, and it was a really good year that first year, and then maybe the next couple of years weren't as good, and then this tree over here started to get bigger, and now here we are. Both of these trees are well established and they are covered in blueberries. This is actually the first peach tree that we planted. It's probably been here 5 years, maybe just 4 years, but it's several years older than the ones that are planted in the front part of the yard. The orchard that we already went through, this tree is older than those, and it is covered in a lot more peaches, and they look a lot better.
Yeah, they don't seem to have the fungus or
some of these are a little soft, Dusty. We might actually need to harvest some.
Yeah, some of them look like they're getting close to being ripe.
Okay, this garden over here next to our shop, if you've been watching us for a while, you've seen us plant in this garden every year, and we've done tomatoes in this garden, we've done peas. We do something different probably every year. This garden gets a lot more shade than any of the other sections in our yard. So this year we just have peas that are actually doing okay and haven't been eaten by the rabbits, because our beans have been the rabbits' favorite thing this year. I don't even think the beans through here are gonna make it.
Let's do a good hoeing, but if you can see right here, they have come through and nipped the top off of every bean all the way down that row. And this one as well. They did leave these beans. Why, I don't know, but I'm glad they did. Maybe they feel sorry for us. And then right here we have, there's beans in between here, but these are cucumbers. And those two on the end are cucuzza squash. So, and then of course we have squash, 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 squash. All those are zucchinis, I believe. And those are peas with some more squash intermingled.
All right, y'all, I've got my bowl and I'm fixing to start picking. This is a really good time of the evening for me to pick blueberries. It's not quite as hot. The sun has gone over those trees and I'm not burning up. So if the mosquitoes don't eat me up, I will see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.
One last thing. I don't think I've actually talked about our trellising system that we made for our tomatoes. This is J-channel. It's a metal J-channel. And I just cut it and bent it to make these triangular brackets. And I just got some fence posts drove in the ground and they're just zip tied on. And I got some more J-channel going across the top. Now, I'm not telling y'all to do this because you wouldn't want to buy this stuff and do it. That's just crazy. But with my line of work, I happen to have a ton of this stuff that comes on metal packets. They'll stick other pieces of trim inside of it and wrap it up with plastic so that it doesn't bend. And not to mention, I had a bunch of short pieces left over from jobs. And oddly enough, I had a good bit of white, which is kind of odd. I didn't think I had that much white. But you'll see, you have to piece it in some places. But these are 6 foot apart. And it worked out really good. I just had the idea. I was thinking about cutting a bunch of beam poles and making a trellis that way. And I got to thinking about it, moving this stuff around, trying to find somewhere to put it out of the way. And I thought about it. It's like, why don't I just build my trellis out of this? And that way I can put my poles on the side and not stick it through the plastic. And it will lean over to the center of the bed where the tomatoes are. And because I didn't want to put a hole in that plastic except for where I was planting something. So it turned out really good. The only downside to the way that we did this may be that the peas are climbing up the tomatoes and choking them out. I don't know if it's actually hurting them. We have tomatoes growing. Everything actually looks good. We do have some blight, but we also live in Mississippi. So you're gonna have blight. It's just the way it is. It's too humid. It's been 90 degrees for ever. So you're gonna have some blight. But anyway, I thought I would just show y'all that and how we done that. And what I do plan to do, these that are growing up over, I plan to gently lay them over and tie them to this J-channel. And just then we'll start running them along the tops of this. And hopefully they'll keep growing, and those top parts will have a whole lot more ventilation. And I'll trim off these all the bottom limbs. That's where most of the blight is at the bottom, where it can't get good air because of all the peas. But to be honest with you, I've planted them by themselves, let them get 2 feet off the ground, trim them. They still get the blight. But anyway, it's still going to be a good crop, man. We picked tomatoes until October. Actually, I believe the end of October last year, we were still getting a bunch of cherry tomatoes. And we finally just quit picking them and let the birds have them. So that's what we're doing. Like I said, you're probably not going to be able to do this. You don't want to buy this stuff. It's going to be too expensive. But my point about all of this is use what you got. You don't have to have the exact thing that you saw on the internet or whatever. You can just use whatever you've got and make it work. Get creative. We'll see y'all later.
More squash planted together in, what is this?